Good morning, everyone. I think we've got a few still waiting in the waiting room. We'll just start in 30 seconds and Alan can give me the thumbs up. But welcome, everyone. Thank you for attending. And thank you for your patience this morning. Hope you're all doing well. Alan's giving me the thumbs up, so I'll get underway. So welcome to this morning's session, Access to Finance, with our special guest, Stuart Cruickshank of Lochend Finance. For those of you that don't know me, I'm Richard Muir. I'm the Deputy Chief Executive of Glasgow Chamber of Commerce, and we've been working hard lobbying Scottish and UK governments on coronavirus business interruption loan schemes, staff retention schemes, waiver of payroll and VAT bills, key worker status, self-employed income support schemes, support for SME owners, as well as providing a resilience support email address, which is there for all of our members and non-members to share their challenges, and we can then address those issues. We've also been running lots of free webinars, and we're delighted to have this session this morning. And one of the recurring themes that's constantly coming up that members are raising with us is cash flow and how to ensure that businesses can survive and access the loans and grants that they are entitled to as smoothly and as quickly as possible. And clearly, the statistics we're getting back is as many as 72% of SMEs expect to reduce their revenues this year by over 50%. So cash flow is absolutely crucial. So the format this morning is nice and simple. Stuart's going to speak and present for about 20 minutes. He's got a slide deck which he's going to share with us, and that will leave us for just about half an hour for Q&A. You can ask questions by using the chat function on your screen or by raising your hand, which can be found in the participants area of the screen bar. Delighted to welcome Stuart, our speaker this morning, as Stuart's going to discuss some of the key issues around access to finance with us. He'll explore the current lending market and the options available to businesses, including high street banks, challenger banks, alternative funders. And we'll spend some time on CBILS and how that's working. Stuart is the founder of Lochend Finance, an independent commercial financial broker with over 30 years experience in banking and financial services. Stuart's also a member of the National Association of Commercial Financial Brokers, and delighted to say that Stuart is also a council director of Glasgow Chamber of Commerce. Stuart, over to you.
Thanks very much, Richard. Thanks for the introduction. So today we're going to talk about access to finance, and very much going to pitch this towards the sort of the smaller end of the SME market. Businesses may be turning over up to £10 million. It's relevant for those bigger businesses as well, but really that's the target market of today. As I said, thanks for coming along. I'd also like to thank the Chancellor for dropping a new scheme in on us last night at very, very short notice, which forced a last minute rewrite of what I was going to be talking about today. As Richard said, I've been in finance for 32 years. I operate my own commercial finance brokerage, and what that really means is I arrange business loans for business owners and property professionals. I sometimes describe it as being a bit similar to a mortgage broker who arranges mortgages for individuals. I do that for business owners. Tends to be a little bit more complicated with businesses, but once I understand what it is you're looking for, I will discuss your proposition with a variety of lenders to make sure that we get you the funding that you need under the best terms, which is a combination of obviously price and conditions. So in order to do that, I need to keep pretty much abreast of what's going on in the lending marketplace on a day-to-day basis, and there has been a hell of a lot going on, certainly in the last month or so. So we'll go into that in a bit of detail. As I just said, I think you all should be on mute, which is great. If you could just remain on mute throughout the presentation, just to stop any rustling in the background. And also, as Richard said, if you want to ask a question, we'll be able to do a hands up at the end. But it would do no harm if you typed your questions into the chat functionality at the bottom of your screen. If you move your cursor down there, you should be able to do that. So I'm going to share my my screen with you, hopefully. Let me just see. And hopefully you can see the slides there now. Can you see them okay, Richard? Give me a thumbs up. Yeah, great, that's fine. So we're going to just talk about access to finance. This is a brief introduction. We'll talk about the lending landscape. We'll talk about some of the free money that's available. We'll talk about civils and the new scheme that was launched last night, and also touch on some additional funding options. I'm going to make these slides available to everybody after the presentation, so feel free to take notes, but these slides will be on their way to you later on today. So in order to kick us off, I just wanted to put up this slide. Now, this is a representation of the lending marketplace as it is today. But before I go into that, I want to take you back to maybe 2005, 2006. For those of you who are old enough to remember that far back, if you wanted to borrow money as a business back then, very much your options were the high street. So you had people at RBS, Clydesdale, Bank of Scotland. You had Lloyds TSB, as they were known back then. You also had a couple of Irish banks. And you had HSBC, Barclays, etc. floating around as well, albeit they were probably not that prevalent in the SME market. They were more operating at the higher end of the marketplace, but they were certainly still there. There was no Santander. They didn't exist until 2010. And you may recall that they kind of came out of the back of Abbey National, Bradford and Bingley and Alliance Leicester all coming together and then ultimately becoming Santander UK. TSB has been around for a long, long time, but really in its current guise only since 2015, when it's spun out of the Lloyds Banking Group, which was Lloyds, TSB and Bank of Scotland post the financial crisis, and TSB largely span out of that. And then more recently, you've got like Clydesdale and Yorkshire Bank rebranding to Virgin Money, which is a process that is still ongoing, but that's more a branding and marketing exercise. But today, this is what the marketplace loosely looks like. You get three tiers of lenders largely in the marketplace. And in tier one, that's a top tier in there that you're looking at the moment. It's where you have mainly your high street banks. So you'll recognise some of the names in there. You may not recognise some of the names, which is absolutely fine. But largely, that is where you will find the cheapest money. But you'll also find that it is often has the most stringent and strict criteria in order to obtain that funding. You may also be asked for security as well in order to obtain your finance. If you move down the tiers, then you tend to find that the borrowing becomes a little bit more expensive. But you will find that lending criteria is a little bit more flexible. Therefore, the tier two lenders will look and consider propositions that the tier one lenders may well not consider. So you get new players in there like Funding Circle, Lending Crowd, who are sort of platform lenders, challenger banks like Shawbrook and Aldermore in there. You also find dedicated specialists like Haydock Finance. So Haydock do the same as what Lombard do. They're asset finance specialists, predominantly hire purchase. However, Haydock will look and finance assets that Lombard maybe wouldn't do. And they'll also take arguably a more sympathetic look at the credit profile of the directors and or the strength of the balance sheet within the business. But again, you will pay a slight interest rate premium for that. If you move down to tier three, that's where you've got very much specialist providers. So I've put Hope Capital Bridging Finance on there. No prizes for guessing. They provide bridging loans. They don't do overdrafts. They don't do current accounts. They don't do hire purchase. They specialise in bridging finance. Merchant Money are there as well. Again, very niche, bespoke provider who provide finance on the back of credit and debit card acceptance. Together are in there. Again, they're mainly a property-based lender, but they will lend against properties that lots of other lenders typically wouldn't consider as being appropriate. And to give you a flavour of some of the prices, these are just this is a flavour of some of the deals that I have been working on recently. So I was doing a relatively large property deal with TSB, maybe around about 700-800k borrowing, but at 50% loan to value. And I was getting a rate of about 2.6% over base as the offer. I've got something much smaller going on in NatWest, slightly quirky, 4.5% over base. I've got something similar this time with Cambridge and Counties. They're looking at 6 over base. And then last week, I completed a deal with Together, and it was effectively a flat rate, a fixed rate of 9.9% per annum. So as you can see, maybe going through the tiers, the lending does get a bit more expensive. And don't get me wrong, and you can be well into double figures with some providers. But again, you are finding that some of these rates are coming together. I did a loan again just over a week ago with a tier 2 to a platform provider, and we got an annual rate of 5.04%, which is very much what I would suggest are tier 1 rates. People often ask me, why would I use a commercial broker? Well, this is probably maybe representative of why. How would you know if you're a customer where to go? Who's going to lend to you? Who's got the appetite for your proposition? Have you got the time to go around and search a market? And very much, whether it's myself or another commercial broker, that is what they can do, is they can search a market for you to get you the right deal at the right price. And most importantly, find a funder who's willing to lend to you in the first place, which quite often can be the challenge. Moving on, just want to touch briefly then on some of the free money that's available. I'm not going to go into this in any great detail because this has been really, really well publicised. If I draw your attention to the URL, it's the top right-hand corner of the presentation. If you go there, you can triage yourself through by answering 2 or 3 questions, and you will be presented with options that may be available to your business. But it's mainly the free money is the grant. And what I would say to you is, if you're a business and you're entitled to a grant, make sure you don't shoot yourself in the foot. Apply for the grant and make sure you obtain it. These grants are available now. One thing to point out, however, the UK government obviously rolled out most of the programmes. Then the devolved governments of Scotland and Wales are able to then adjust and put those sort of grants and what have you out in the way that they want to actually do that. So therefore, there is a slight element of confusion at times in the marketplace, and it's made it ever so slightly more complicated because you do have variations between Wales, England and Scotland. The main thing, however, I would say is please check with your local authority. If you're entitled, please apply and the money should be with you. Because it's been run by the local authorities, they are operating at different speeds. I was here in Renfrewshire, we're quite quick, Glasgow were a little bit slower, but the money is flowing. The key thing is, however, you do need to apply. There is also a 500 million future fund coming along as well. Still waiting for details on that to come out, but it's really for match funding for where people have put private investment in of 125,000 and above. It'll be matched by the government, but that'll then be converted into equity. So may or may not be relevant to people on this call. Happy to chat to people offline about that, but the details still to largely come out about that. Want to touch on a second, the Prince's Trust and NatWest Enterprise Relief Fund. So this is quite niche, not well publicised at all, but it is available. But it's got very specific lending, very specific criteria in order to qualify for it. And again, these are sort of grants that are available to business owners, but you have to be 18 to 30. So unfortunately, I personally won't qualify, but there may well be some people on the call who do. Relatively new businesses based in the UK, but it is UK wide. So again, something worth looking into to see if it's appropriate for your business. One of the main things I wanted to discuss today, however, was the civil scheme, the Coronavirus Business Interruption Loan Scheme, to give it its full Sunday title. So Civils was launched more or less at the start of lockdown, and it's not an entirely new scheme. The banks already operated a scheme called the Enterprise Finance Guarantee Scheme, which existed for many, many years, albeit it wasn't really particularly widely used. And what the government have done is they've kind of given it a bit of a lick of paint, a turbo boost, improved it a little bit, and relaunched it as Civils. The idea behind the scheme was you could approach any bank to apply for a Civils loan who were on the accredited panel. In reality, what we're finding is at the moment, certainly the banks who are accredited are dealing with their own customers, so there isn't really much by way of any competitiveness in the marketplace. However, what has been happening since the scheme was launched, there have been at least 7 or 8 new lenders accredited. For example, Funding Circle came on board a couple of weeks ago in terms of accreditation. Co-op, Starling have come on board, albeit none of them are lending yet. I think Funding Circle may imminently be lending because they've still got to sort out the processes. There were 4 approved over the weekend there: ThinCats, Paragon, AIB, and I think it was IGF were approved over the weekend. So there are more and more options coming on board of lenders getting involved in the Civil scheme. To qualify, you need to have no more than 45 million turnover. There are 2 additional schemes for businesses over 45 million and into that corporate space. But again, not going to touch on that today, but there are larger schemes available as well. You need to work in an eligible or operate in an eligible industry. There are a few exclusions. There aren't many, but there are a few. Sort of finance companies, etc., can't apply. You can't have excessive state aid. And the most important thing is you do need to have been financially viable prior to the crisis. And that is financially viable in the eye of the lender and have a viable business ongoing. One of the key things you need to remember is this is a loan. You are borrowing money, so you are taking on debt. So you have to be comfortable that ultimately you can repay that debt. You can borrow up to 5 million, albeit the amount that you will borrow won't be relevant for your business, and it will need to be verified by way of cash flow forecasts to prove that the figure is fair and reasonable. And the government will provide an 80% guarantee. Now, what that effectively means is that if you borrowed £100,000 and you defaulted on it, still owing £100,000, the government would pay the lender back 80%, but you would still be liable for the remaining 20%. Now, as long as you're borrowing under 250, there'll be no personal guarantees, but again, you still would technically be liable. And therefore, it'll be interesting to see what, if anything, when ultimately someone does default in a number of months' time, which is inevitable, somebody will, what happens with regards to the banks pursuing individuals for that additional funds. The loans are repayable over a maximum of 6 years, albeit with overdrafts and invoice finance, there's a 3-year cap on those products. The first 12 months is interest free, so the great thing is you don't need to pay any interest on those loans. The government will pay the lender the interest for the first 12 months. And as I said, there's no personal guarantees for borrowing below 250, and 1 or 2 lenders I'm aware of pretty much saying no guarantees for the larger loans as well, although others are looking to take personal guarantees, which are entitled to do. If your lender's going to charge you an arrangement fee, which most will, some won't, the government will pay that as well. And what we're finding in practice, although this is not actually technically part of the scheme, most of the lenders are offering a capital repayment holiday for at least 6 months and potentially 12 months. So what that means is with certain lenders, you've got no capital, no interest to pay. You can borrow the money, you can use it, and it'll be 12 months down the line, this time next year, before you need to start making any repayments. And the principle behind that is your business is back on track and hopefully operating well at that point in time. So that's again a brief overshot. I'll be happy to take questions later on about that. One of the other things that we're finding as well just about Civils is probably worth mentioning is that the banks have been inundated with applications and they were all really struggling. And in fairness to the banks, they went from doing very few of those loans to all the customers applying. One of the key things that we're finding is that a well-packaged loan application has got a better chance of going through quickly. Again, feedback from the banks and from advisors has been that sometimes when clients apply themselves, some clients are excellent at applying themselves, going through it and doing what they need to do. Others maybe don't present their case, provide the information in a timely manner. it then makes it more challenging for lenders to approve those loans, and you may potentially drop to the bottom of the pile a little bit, because if a banker has got 20 or 30 applications on his desk and yours is a dog's dinner, then he's not probably going to be jumping to deal with that one first. So, using advisors like myself and other advisors out there in the marketplace to help you package those applications is not necessarily a bad thing to do. This is a new thing that came in last night. I would say from left field. There was anticipating that something might come along at some point, but the Chancellor announced yesterday bounce back loans. What you're looking at on the screen is pretty much what we know. These bounce back loans are going to be available from 2,000 to 50,000, 12 months interest free, and they're going to be 100% backed by the government. So as we understand, you borrow £50,000, the government will guarantee the lender, if you default, they'll get the £50,000 back. The scheme is going to be available from next Monday. Apparently it's going to be a simple application process, and there's going to be no forward-looking business viability test, which is very peculiar and very different to how most loans work. If you want to borrow money, you need to be able to demonstrate you can pay it back. The inference in this loan is that that's not necessarily going to be the case. Like most of these schemes, as was announced yesterday, the detail is still to follow, and the detail will come out this week. So we're just literally, because this was hot off the press yesterday, we have no more information. But like everything else, it will be a loan, so you will be liable for the repayments. So it's a case of watch your space. And if you keep an eye on my Facebook and LinkedIn pages, I will be putting updates on this out there as soon as they become available. But this could be a really interesting one, and it's got a lot of positive press over the last, I was going to say 24 hours, it's not even as long as that, last 12 hours. It sounds really good, sounds really promising from businesses, but we do need to see the detail. Also want to talk about a few other alternative options that may be available to your business. These other options will not be right for every business. And I'm not trying to say for 1 minute they are. I just want to sort of educate everybody on other options that may be available and may be relevant for your business. It's important that whenever you look to enter into anything, it needs to be right for you and it needs to be right for your business. And these are, I wouldn't necessarily say they're all niche products, but they are actively used in the marketplace and they may work to help you going forward. Invoice finance is the first of these. And I wanted just to touch on that briefly. And invoice finance is really, it's used in a business-to-business environment where you can receive potentially up to 90% of an invoice that you raise within 24 hours. So let's assume you have a £10,000 invoice. You normally don't get it paid for 30 or 60 days. You raise the invoice and within 24 hours, you could maybe get £9,000 into your bank account. The balance is received when the invoice is settled. However, there is obviously a deduction for charges and interest from the relevant lender that provides that. It can be used for all your debtor book. You can do it for select invoices, and there's bad debt protection available. Now, you could use an overdraft as well. However, with overdrafts, what you quite often find is one, your bank might not want to give you an overdraft. Two, they might ask for specific security in order to give you that. Invoice finance is generally security free, as the invoices act as the security for the transaction. Again, if you're in business to business, worth looking at, worth thinking about, not necessarily something you have to do or need to do, but it's an option that's available. Asset finance and asset refinance is something that's we're seeing a little bit more activity of in the marketplace. Some businesses have a lot of assets, vehicles, plants, equipment, etc. And they could potentially use those assets or the equity in them to get a cash injection. So let's assume you've got 5 pieces of equipment or vehicles and are worth £50,000 today's value. You owe £20,000 on them on maybe some hire purchase agreements that you have outstanding, or maybe you don't have any debt in some of them. You could potentially say, just as an illustrative example, borrow another £20,000, take that up to £40,000 of borrowing against the £50,000 of assets, renegotiate the loan term, stretch the loan term out, and then therefore get a £20,000 cash injection into your business on that example. You might also find that your monthly outgoings reduced because of you've refinanced 4 or 5 different agreements into one and stretched the term out. Not for everybody, because one, you might not have the assets to do that. Secondly, you will be borrowing more money, and ultimately it will be costing you more longer term. So again, you need to enter into that with your eyes open, but it is a way of potentially getting cash into your business in the short term. And ultimately, normally these agreements, you could potentially escalate the repayment of them and pay them off early, should you ultimately be able to do so down the line. The next thing is a merchant services cash advance. Now, this is a very niche product, and one thing I will say right up front is it is an expensive borrowing option, but it's also very, very convenient as well. So again, absolutely not for everybody, but it is there in the marketplace. And what you do is it's applicable for businesses who take payments by credit and debit card. So let's assume you take £20,000 a month on credit and debit card on average. You could then potentially borrow £20,000, which is then repaid from your future credit and debit card receipts. Now, how that works is you maybe agree to repay back, say, 10% per month. So, for example, you've borrowed £20,000. Next month, you collect £20,000 in credit and debit cards, and 10% of that goes towards repaying the loan, say, so £2,000. The beauty of this product is, because it's flexible, if you have a slow month and you only bring in £10,000 the next month, you will only pay back 10%, so it'll be £1,000. If the following month you had a really good month and you brought in 30, you still pay back 10%, but pay back £3,000. Most times you take out a loan, you have roughly a fixed monthly outgoing each month in loan repayments. There's little variability in there. With this, these repayments will vary according to your future takings, which means you may pay back the loan sooner or later than you originally thought. As I said, the interest rates on these do typically tend to be high, but they can be arranged very quickly. There's generally no security involved other than the sort of assignation over your future card payments. An overdraft would potentially be a cheaper option, again, but equally so, again, as I said before, you might need to give security, personal guarantees, or other forms of security to obtain an overdraft for your business. These can be arranged very, very quickly, normally within a few days potentially as well. So again, another one for the pot, niche, not for everybody, but there. And then the final thing I just want to touch on, slightly different, R&D tax credits. So R&D, research and development, have been around since the year 2000, roughly. And as I said, you know, when I think of research and development, I do think of people that maybe hunting down the coronavirus vaccine, people in laboratories in white coats doing experiments. R&D is not always about that. You know, it can be used in software development, automation, product development, and even, you know, restaurants who are experimenting with menus and recipes and things like that potentially can qualify for R&D tax credit. And effectively, it's a tax credit you get back from HMRC. It's completely above board. It's an official tax scheme that's there. And that might, therefore, if you have not claimed back your R&D tax credits, then it's something that you may want to do and look into doing. So again, if you wanted to chat to me about that going forward, more than happy to have a general discussion with you on that. And that is largely me in terms of the presentation. There is, you know, I could have gone on and on and on for a lot longer, and we could digest this down to lots of separate smaller chunks as well. But I just wanted to give you today a bit of a flavour of what the marketplace looks like, you know, what's available. My contact details are on there. You know, I'm available for a free, no obligation discussion anytime anybody wants to chat anything through. And if you take a look at my LinkedIn and my Facebook profile, you will find updates about everything we've talked about today in there, or I can send you information across. As you said, Alan or somebody from the team will send across this presentation after we've finished today. And really now I'd just like to hand it back to Richard and Alan to see if we've got any questions that anybody wants to ask.
Thank you very much, Stuart. That was excellent. Lots in there, from lending getting more expensive down or up through the tiers, to the free money and the small business grants with the councils, the Princess Trust and NatWest fund that you talked about, C-bills, going into that in depth, and I'm sure we'll dig into that more as well, and the bounce back loans that were announced last night, which I think again we'll probably want to talk more about, and then into alternative options and invoice finance, which I might come back to you on as well. At this point, we're throwing it open to questions. We've got roughly half an hour, guys. You can ask questions either if you want to come on the screen and ask your question in person. Please raise your hand by hovering over the participants bar and either raising a virtual hand or just putting your hand up on screen, and I'll come to you. Or if you'd rather, just put your question down in the chat box. And we have got one question which we can kick off with from Jeff O'Brien. Thanks, Jeff. Jeff's asking, what about existing bank loans, Stuart? Will they be repriced and restructured alongside a C-bills application?
Yeah, no, great question, and thanks for that. The general answer to that is at the moment is no. CBILS loans will run separately from existing loans that are already in place. There has been a bit of chat, certainly within, not necessarily within the finance community, about whether or not you should be able to sort of reconstitute other loans that you've maybe got and roll them into one and be protected by CBILS. That's certainly not how it's been portrayed at this moment in time. It would maybe make sense for some businesses, if they had a couple of loans, to be able to roll these into one new loan. But again, it's really very much for this interim period for impacts related to the coronavirus loan scheme. I think it's hence the reason why the interest is being deferred, and quite often capital is being deferred as well. So they do very much just need to stand alone as it stands at this moment in time. But who's to say that down the line this may evolve and views on that might change?
Okay, thanks, Stuart. We've got another question from Barry. Barry Farrell is asking, if you currently have an EFG government-backed loan, will this have any impact on being able to apply for further government-backed loans, such as the bounce-back loan announced last night?
Yeah. My understanding is no. So if you've already got an EFG loan, it does not preclude you from getting a coronavirus business interruption loan. And obviously the new loans that we heard about yesterday, we still don't have the fine print on that. But my best estimate, best guess would be the answer to that would be no. They're separate schemes, and just because you've had an EFG loan doesn't mean you wouldn't be able to get and qualify for a CBILS loan or one of the other fundings that are going to be available going forward.
I've got one question for you, Stuart, around the invoice financing. Does that particularly work well in certain sectors as opposed to others? Have you got a view on that?
It will work across the board. It needs to be business to business. It's particularly popular in certain areas. So, for example, recruitment, particularly if you do a lot of temporary recruitment, where you're putting staff into businesses and you're having to pay them weekly, but you may not be receiving payment for those staff for a number of weeks. Also works quite well in places like haulage. You might deliver goods as an independent haulier and you deliver to Asda and Tesco. Now these guys are unlikely to default in their payments to you, but they're notoriously quite slow at paying. 30, 60, 90 days is not uncommon. So therefore it works really well in that sort of industry as well. But really anywhere that you have, if you need to raise an invoice and you're not going to get paid for at least 30 days and potentially longer, then it's worth having a look at, considering. Again, it may or may not be right for you. You need to weigh up the costs and everything that goes with it. but if you raise an invoice, you're not getting paid. And what this crisis has certainly done for a few people is, I'm speaking to quite a few businesses who have got a lot of money outstanding with debtors at this moment in time, and they can't get the money in because of the crisis. If they'd been using invoice finance, that money would potentially be in their bank account. And what I'm also finding as well with it is a lot of businesses are feeling that they maybe get sufficient cash to get them over the first 3 months. It's the 3 and 6 months after that's going to be the real challenge, because although they may be locked down and they've reduced their cost short term, and their outgoings have therefore reduced, and they're living off some of their savings, as soon as they start to trade again, they'll need to start paying salaries, they'll need to put fuel in vehicles and machineries, they might need to buy raw materials, and costs will increase. And if you're in that business-to-business environment, you start trading, and if your customers aren't going to pay you for 30 or 45 days, then how are you going to fund that? And therefore invoice finance might be the solution. A civils loan might be a better solution, or some other form of funding may be better. It's important we do find the right solution, but it's one of the tools in the armoury that is available. But again, business to business is great.
Okay, thanks, Stuart. That's really helpful. Connie has asked a question around small business grants. She thinks they seem quite confusing as to who can actually apply, and is asking, are they applicable to sole traders?
Yeah, so the various grants that are available, a lot of them are based around some of the rates relief and that's available. So yeah, so their legal entity is not necessarily that significant. It's round about the fact about what sector you operate in. And a lot of these are aimed around hospitality leisure, for example, whereby who will have premises that they trade from. So therefore they'll be entitled to grants because they will have overheads. Probably difficult to answer in massive detail on the webinar, because it is a little bit complex, and depending on what your business is and where it is and what it qualifies for and how many premises. But I think the key message is if you look at your local authority website, or go to that URL that was on the slide, triage your way through. It should present the options that are available to you, and then follow the links. And the key thing is, if you think you're eligible, apply. And if you're in any doubt, I'm happy to have a word with you. Accountants are certainly well versed, and other business advisors are well versed in the specifics. And your accountant, for example, will know your business inside and out potentially, and can help and give you some guidance in that regard as well. So you do need to do a bit of research, but if anybody wanted to speak to me specifically, I'd happily help them out as best I can and point them in the right direction.
Okay, so just a wee reminder, if anybody wants to come on and actually ask Stuart a question direct, raise your hands, either virtually or on screen. And also, if you've got any questions, put them on the chat. Stuart, can you tell us a wee bit more about the Chancellor's announcement last night? I know it's difficult because you maybe not had time to kind of digest the details, but this is going to apply probably to a lot of our members. I just wonder, is there any kind of pearls of wisdom you want to share from last night's announcement, and how quickly a company is going to be able to get cash through that announcement?
Yeah, so as you said, it's hot off the press, and the devil's always in the detail, but it does look very, very, very promising. So I think one of the concerns with banks lending is that, when a bank lends money, it wants to get its money back, and it wants to be sure that you're a good bet and you're going to be able to repay your obligations. And even with an 80% government guarantee, lenders are still a little bit nervous. They want to really do a proper analysis in their business to make sure it's viable. And I think what this scheme's designed to do is try to cut through some of that, to try and get the funds to flow a bit quicker. So the early indications are it's going to be a very short form application process. It's not going to be overly assessed by the lenders. And they have said you'll get the money within 24 hours of approval. Now, what they haven't said is how long it will take from application to get approval, which is always where you maybe sometimes find the the challenges, but if there's no security and probably limited paperwork, then they can pay out the money really quickly. So the inference in this is it's designed for you to get your money quickly. As I said, we do need to wait this week, Richard, to see what detail comes out from the government about the actual process. But they've obviously been working it in the background. They indicated there's been a lot of engagement with the lenders. So we look forward very positively to see how that's going to be, because this could be a real important lifeline for businesses. I would just, the other thing I would, however, just stress as well is that that is a loan. And again, something that I'm always just curious about with this is, although this is a government backed 100%, it will still be a loan. Somebody won't repay the loan back ultimately. And what does that mean for them going forward? What does it mean for them and their business of credit profile and their ability to, in a few years down the line, borrow again if they need to? So again, I just always be caution everybody that ultimately these are loans that are expected to be repaid. And although there is a government guarantee there, the obligation is still on the business to repay the loans if they take one on. I think we've lost Richard. I can't see him on the screen anymore.
Yeah, I think we have, Stuart. But I see there's quite a few questions popped up in the sort of participants list. So will we go to Evelyn first, Stuart?
Yeah, go on, fire ahead. Yeah.
I just unmute Evelyn. There we go.
Thank you, Alan. Can you hear me okay?
Yes, Evelyn, hear you fine.
Hi, Stuart. Thank you so much for a really informative webinar. I really do appreciate your time today. Can I ask a question and just touch back on what you shared earlier? You shared the benefits of using a commercial broker like yourself as opposed to going directly to a lender. And you mentioned searching the market, finding a funder, helping package loan applications. Are you able to elaborate on that? So, for example, the length of timelines between introduction to support delivery.
In terms of how quickly can you get your funding?
So, for example, if I was being introduced to you today for the first time, how long would you envisage in this current climate it would take? Or just if you could maybe share the high-level steps, that would be great.
Yeah, sure. So if you're approaching a lender yourself, you will generally approach a lender and go through a process with them. Now, if you want to go and approach individually yourself, multiple lenders, you can. One of the benefits of using a broker such as myself, and again, want to keep this relative independent, there are other commercial brokers are available in the marketplace. This isn't just a pitch for me and my business. But what I do is I am able to search a marketplace on your behalf. And the main thing I do, some of the first things is save you a lot of time, save you a lot of hassle. I have a conversation with you, I get to know your business, understand what you want to borrow the money for. I will then take that proposition to, it's not a scattergun approach, I will strategically take that to lenders whom I believe will be interested in supporting your proposition. And then we will engage with them, obtain indicative terms, and then agree with you which lender or lenders to pursue. And ultimately, we like to narrow it down to an ultimate one. And again, it depends on what you're doing. If you're buying a bit of equipment, you're just saying you're buying a new vehicle and you're looking for some hire purchase, we can very quickly go out to 2 or 3 lenders, get a price, get a deal, and it can be done and dusted within a week. And it's quite transactional. It doesn't, not a lot of hassle. If you want to borrow a few £100,000 for a project, which involves buying property, maybe doesn't or whatever, it could obviously just be a bit more drawn out. But the key thing is we work our way through and ultimately find a lender who's first. The most important thing is finding a lender who's willing to lend to you, and then secondly, making sure the price and the terms and conditions are appropriate. And when I say the terms and conditions, it's not just about the price. Price is obviously important, but the conditions are important too. So for example, you might have lender A's got a really good price, but the conditions are quite onerous. They want this security, and they've got these covenants and various clauses that are quite onerous when you're as a business owner. You might be better at a slightly higher rate with slightly less restrictive conditions. So we've got to make sure we tailor the package to you. If it involves property, then it can take a number of weeks because you need to take security. So property transactions can take 8 weeks, 12 weeks sometimes. If you wanted a bridging loan for something, generally speaking, it can be done pretty quickly within 2 or 3 weeks. Asset finance, you count it in sort of days. But I mean, the main thing is that the marketplace is quite challenging and the lenders are quite tricky. And, you know, I'm going to contradict myself ever so slightly here, because one of the things I've said about using a broker is we know the best lenders to go to find you finance. Well, we do, but equally so, we don't always get that spot on first time, because I was dealing with a client who was wanting to borrow £200,000. Discussion started off a number of months ago, and the deal went through about 7-8 days ago. Now, I was very confident this was a deal we would get done with a high street lender. 3 high street lenders rejected the deal. 1 platform alternative lender rejected the deal, and we finally, at the 5th attempt, got a deal approved. And we actually got a fantastic rate, but we kind of had to go around the houses with it. And quite often what we find is, and there's a slight, to be honest, we find this a slight Scottish mentality, is if you go yourself and you go to a lender and they say no, quite often people go, well, I've had a rejection, I'm not going to try again, and the head goes in the sand a little bit. What we can do as brokers is, and the broker community as a whole will do, is they've got persistence. You can sit back, you can get on with running your business while we are looking to source the right funding package for you. And I know this person that I was dealing with, they would have given up probably. They might have tried a couple lenders, but they would have given up the ghost. And equally so, there are that many lenders in the marketplace, and when I put up that slide earlier on, I'm quite sure everyone, you recognise some of those names, but you probably didn't recognise them all. So it's, how do you know where to go? How do you know where to reach? So we cut through that for you. But to come back to your main point, the length of time it will take, you know, we'll do a professional assessment with you. We'll help you obtain information, we'll package a case together, and we'll present it professionally to the lenders to get the best chance of an approval. The timeline is then what the timeline is, depending on what the transaction is. If it involves security, it takes longer. If it doesn't, it's a little bit quicker. But we assist it to move as quickly as it possibly can. In reality, everything is moving a little bit slower at the moment because all the lenders are either some are inundated with civils, others have pulled out the market, been a little bit cautious. Property transactions are stumbling a little bit because nobody knows how to value a property in today's current marketplace. So there's quite a lot of uncertainty. So certainty makes things go a little bit slower as well.
Thank you so much, Stuart. Like yourself, I work with small companies, so that's really informative. Thank you. Really appreciate that.
No problem.
Thanks for the question, Evelyn. And sorry, I seemed to dip out there. I was trying to reply to an email and lost myself in the process, so apologies about that. But we've got a couple of raised hands, and thank you to John. John's raised his hand, and so has Derek. We'll come to John first because your hand was up. John, we'll unmute you if you want to pose your question to Stuart.
Hi, Stuart.
Hi, John.
You mentioned a well-packaged application, which I think is extremely important. I have had some sort of feedback from a couple of credit committees recently, and particularly from small businesses. It's, let's say, that they're looking very closely at current assets and current liabilities, particularly creditors and debtors, stock, etc. And I think maybe when they're putting applications together, there's a couple of benefits of maybe having a look at the stock levels you're holding. Is it realistically to turn it into cash? On the debt, on the creditor's position, what are your terms and conditions? I think a lot of stuff the credit guys are seeing is it's been very quickly cobbled together. Now, I'm sure as a broker, that's something that you look at. Would you sort of take a prospective client through that process, particularly around, as you know, with SMEs, stock and work in progress are notoriously difficult to value with any accuracy, and particularly if you're trying to do a calculation that works out your cash position, you know, it's important. Is that something you would help people with?
Yes, absolutely. That certainly will do. Again, the amount that we'll dive into that will depend on the size of the business to some extent. A smaller business, you maybe don't need to do that just as vigorously as you maybe do with a larger business. And again, depending on what they do as well, you know, stock is notoriously difficult. You know, if you've got a huge load of perishable goods that you spend money on, you could be in a bit of a sticky wicket at this moment in time. Equally so, even if it's not perishable goods, they can end up sitting on your shelf for a long time, and being able to realise them into cash can be difficult. I mean, one of the things that we may speak to a client about is, you know, not a fan of this, but it's maybe relevant, a small discount to help move the product. So if it's nothing else, if you have got a large stock of a product and it's sitting in your shelf and it's got a lot of cash tied on it, maybe offering a 2, 3, 5% discount to help get that moving might be a relevant thing to do to get cash. And you don't want to undersell your services, the value of what you've got, but you know, it might be the right thing to do. But you're absolutely right, you know. And if I look at creditors and debtors right now for a business, I actually got a set in on Friday. The debtors look pretty horrific because the business has been in lockdown, they've not been getting any money in, and they've got a lot more money outstanding in debtors than they would normally have. And equally so, they probably owe some people more money than they would normally owe as well, because again, they can't get the money in. So the people who owe them money are holding out, so they're holding out on the people whom they owe money to. So it can be a little bit of a vicious circle, particularly at this time, John.
Thanks for the question, John. You happy with that? You want to come back, or are you good?
No, I think that's fine. I deal with mostly clients who are either importing or exporting, and a number of sort of queries from suppliers, particularly China, Middle East, are now looking for letters of credit, which tends to put a bit of a spanner in the works. It's just sort of feedback from a number of phone calls and sort of emails asking what are these things. But again, it's a way of raising cash. If you're selling goods overseas, it's a way of you can use the letter of credit to raise some cash if you're interested in that. And obviously the Chamber can help with some of the paperwork that goes with it.
Absolutely. Yeah. No, thanks for that, John. We've got time for one last question, and Derek's had his hand up, so we'll come to you, Derek.
Morning everyone. Stuart, firstly, thank you very much for your information this morning and sharing your experience. Just fantastic feedback, so thank you for that. One of the challenges I think everyone's facing is which grant, which loan, which scheme is right for me. You know, there's almost too much choice. And it sounds as if the loan option is right for you, then a broker like yourself is certainly someone that can help. But is there any information out there that can help people choose what the right scheme is for them? Or is there any other tips that you could tell us on? How do you prepare for it? For me, I think John mentioned it with debtors and creditors and with stock turn. It's putting a cash flow plan together to understand, you know, how far out you need to go. But is there any information available to help people choose the right scheme?
Yeah, again, it's a great question, Derek, and knowing what you do, you're involved in this on a day-to-day basis yourself quite heavily. Cash flow forecast is vitally important at this moment in time, and I'm not just talking about a monthly; it's daily, weekly at worst. You know, at this moment in time, and looking at that very closely. What I would certainly say is if you can get a grant that is free and you don't need to repay it, you grab it. You know, if it is free money, you take it, you put it in your bank, and you use it wisely. Don't. And I always say when you're wheeling and dealing, never leave money on the table. Well, whatever you do, don't leave money on the table. If you're entitled to a grant, make sure you get it. Then when it comes to if you need additional funding, then you got to be careful because loans need to be repaid and your business needs to be able to repay that money. So again, it's about a case of sitting down, once you've done your cash flow forecast, really sitting down and understanding what are the pressure points for your business. Certainly the coronavirus loan scheme looks very appealing from the point of view of, obviously, you get interest paid for 12 months, you're getting any fees paid for, so some real pluses there. There's a government guarantee to it as well. Therefore, if that is the way to go, then it's certainly worth considering. But some of those other options may be relevant to your business today or down the line, because ultimately, you know, we're in here for the long run. So what's right and the right thing to do over the next few months might be completely different to what you need to do over, 12 months down the line. But I would certainly keep an eye on the government websites. Certainly engage with your accountants over and any other professional advisors, business coaches that are involved in your business. There is a lot of professional advice out there that you can tap into. A lot of it's been given free at this moment in time as well. And I would just make sure everybody's is well abreast of that. And then I'm happy to have a free, as I said, no obligation chat with anybody. I know, Derek, you do similar things. You've been running your own webinars and what have you as well, which have been immensely valuable to people too. So utilise that and just make sure that you're not, as I said, missing out on opportunities, and you're well versed. Take some advice and don't, as I said, probably the best thing is to take some advice and don't just enter it into because you think it's the best thing to do, because you might not know what all the options are that are out there.
Great feedback, Stuart. Thank you.
Thanks for the question, Derek, and thanks, Stuart. And I think that just about wraps us up. We're bang on time. So I'd like to thank you all for coming and joining us this morning. I'd like to thank Stuart for leading us through the webinar, sharing his expertise and taking us through some of these complexities in accessing all the different funding packages and finance which is available, particularly during these times. If any of you have got any particular questions regarding today's presentation and contribution, please email us on marketing@glasgowchamberofcommerce.com and Stuart will reply, or indeed get back to Stuart direct. We will make the slides available from today's session. And actually thinking aloud, Stuart, it might well be that we call on your services again in due course, because I think as we, the process goes on, the complexities don't get any easier. We may need regular updates. So we might well come back to you if you're available to do a follow-up session in due course. But as I say, the slides will be made available from today's session. And actually, if you've got any other more general questions or you need the Chamber to help, please email us either at the marketing address, or we've set up a special resilience support email address, which is resiliencesupport@glasgowchamberofcommerce.com as well. Our free webinar series continues this week as well. So we've got our regular contribution by our Chief Executive, Stuart Patrick, at 3 o'clock on Wednesday, followed by a 20-minute Q&A with Stuart, so he can bring you up to speed with what's been happening in his conversations with British Chambers of Commerce, Scottish Chambers of Commerce, and Scottish and British governments. We also have a special session on Thursday with partners Anderson Strathern at 2:30 on Thursday, taking a closer look at furloughing scheme and the legalities around that. And details, you'll get all the details on the Chamber website. And we have a regular member catch-up, which is a very informal coffee break chat with Sarah and Robert. We call that the WeG chat. So that's on Friday at 11 o'clock. And please, you're welcome to join us for a very light, informal chat around some of the issues facing you. So thanks again all for attending today. Please do keep in touch with us at the Chamber of Commerce. Stay safe, bye for now, and keep in touch. Thank you.